Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, I want to talk to you about Chapter 10, the very first component of this, which are the functional assessments. Now, we've done videos before that have gone into the specifics of exactly what you would need to know, just as a for instance, from a memorization standpoint on all of these basic assessments. I'm just going to be honest with you. Chapter 10 is a very important chapter when it comes to the testing. It's also a pretty good chapter if you're actually trying to utilize some of the materials that you get in this textbook in the real world. So I used to do postural assessments all the time, very basic, frontal view, sagittal view, and then from the rear to look at the shoulder girdle, which was generally the one area that would be problems for clients. So the whole idea of doing a static postural assessment is a good idea. But in the video, what I want to help you to kind of understand is where you should kind of put your focus from a studying perspective. Again, you can look at any of the other videos that we have available to look at each one of these individually, but in a general overview, because again, I get questions from students asking me, how do I go through the study process? How do I memorize all of this information? Now, the process of memorizing it is not the issue. It's structuring it that should be really thought through a little bit based on your learning style. But no matter what your learning style, I'm looking for a pen. It's always read through it, and rewrite it. Now, it will recommend that you have a sheet of paper when you go through this. So I just wanted to give you an overview again of the functional assessments. Remember, in the IFT model, there's functional assessments, movement assessments, load and speed assessments. Again, I'm in chapter 10. That's going to be chapter 10 itself actually starts on 391, but that initial component, this is one of the things I always recommend is use their initial front page for the chapter to create your framework for studying if you're going to be writing out the information. So in this case, you would have at the top functional assessments would be a single sheet of paper that you would use for notes, functional assessments at the top, and then one at a time, give them their own room, static postural assessment, static balance or the unipedal stance test, right? Dynamic balance, the Y balance test, and I would write that down. And then all the pertinent information that you need to memorize for those. And then the McGill torso, muscle endurance test, battery, and then flexibility assessment. So if you move now over into 391, my recommendation, I don't always recommend just reading through the text, but ACE has given you some initial information that's really, really important, and it comes in the form of the apply what you know box. One of the things to keep in mind in the entire textbook here in particular is whenever you see bullet points, it's a good idea to go, okay, stop, slow down, because bullet points are summaries. They've summarized for you essentially a lot of material into these bullet points. I mean, these bullet points are, a sentence or two long, but the recommendation on page 391, they're going to tell you that the IFT model provides trainers with the option to either conduct, this is an important point from a testing perspective, conduct fitness assessments or lead your clients through early sessions that incorporate exercise programming. The idea is that what ACE wants you to remember is that you can do assessments or not do assessments, right? It's up to you and the client. I recommend you do the assessments. It's not really an option. You got to get the necessary information on their posture, things like that before you move forward with an exercise program. However, what they're trying to tell you is that you can either do them as a initial standalone assessment, right? Do these assessments and then move on to your training, or if they're fit, they're in decent shape, nothing really wrong with them, you can incorporate these assessments into their actual initial workouts. And that's really all they're saying is you can incorporate exercise programming that delivers appropriate movement and fitness challenges while also providing the trainer with valuable feedback about their current postural stability, mobility, balance, cardio fitness, and muscular fitness. And that's basically what they're saying. So it's a good idea to keep that in mind. Understand ACE is not saying you got to do all these assessments right at the beginning before I even train. What they're saying is have a, take a little time, look at your client. Can I actually start training them through their initial stages of the cardio and muscular fitness IFT model? And if I am going to do that, try to incorporate the, sort of the heart and soul of what the assessment is trying to figure out. Okay. There's other times when you're going to have clients that literally, oh, no, I need to do a postural assessment because I need to do, why are we doing these anyway? Well, you want to find out the shortened and the lengthened muscles, the hypo or the hypertonic. And so the recommendation on page 391, read through the apply what you know box. It's not necessary to, to try and memorize this entire box of apply what you know, which goes onto the page 392, but definitely get a good understanding of these bullet points. Some of them are um, common sense, I would say, and then some of them you may have to write over a couple of times. Client-centered approach, that they're going to keep throwing that at you over and over. From a testing perspective, it's good to know the ABC approach, what they call the ABC approach to this. So, and by the way, if you go over into figure 10.1, right, the mover method, they're showing you that the muscular training component of this and the cardiorespiratory training component are the two sides of the coin, right, from a programming perspective. So again, they have their mover method and the ABC approach, right? So ask open-ended questions. And when you go to page 392 and you read through this, they're just reiterating that. So I highly recommend that you read the apply what you know, read that through, make sure you really understand it. It's the one area that makes the most sense to really spend some time before you move into this next phase of study. Now, again, the recommendation is they are going to give you functional assessments versus movement assessments. So functional assessments is what we're talking about in this video. And under the functional assessment, you are going to start with static postural assessments. Again, you can go and see the videos that we've done that go directly into just static postural assessments. Right now, I just want you to understand that the static postural assessment component of this chapter, it's a lot of information. And what you do need to know, and by the way, again, I always recommend with the ACE materials, apply what you know box, think it through boxes, because again, they're collapsing a lot of good information into a small area. So the word hypertonic is key here. Tonus is the level of base contractility that a muscle stays in when you're not working it, right? So basic tonus means with my arm down like this, if I do this, that's tonus. My biceps are at a certain level of contractility, low grade, consistent contractility when it's not being worked. Hypertonus or hypertonic muscles have a higher degree of tension or contractility associated with them, and it's not good. Tonic is good. Tonus, normal tonus is fine. Hyper means that they are overstimulated. You're not contracting the muscle, but they are shortened a little bit more than they should be. Those shortened muscles have hypo, or those muscles that are lengthened. And here's one of the things to keep in mind when you move over. This, again, you're writing this down. You're going to go a little bit more in depth, but a couple of things to keep in mind in this particular area of the chapter on the functional assessments are the tables that they're giving you to describe the figure 10.3. Okay, so table 10.1, all these are muscle imbalances associated. You got to know muscle imbalances, and they're going to give you the terms. Now look at the terms. They're giving you 3 terms. Facilitated means hypertonic, which also means shortened. Inhibited means lengthened. Now, we could use the word like hypotonic. They don't use those terms, but that's kind of the idea, is make sure you know, because you don't know if they're going to use the word facilitated and you didn't study. Well, what does facilitated means? It's hypertonic. So make sure you get that, get that solid in your brain, that facilitated hypertonic shortened muscles, the same thing. So you're going to move through that area. Keep your eyes open for the bullet points that they have listed. And of course, some of the figures are helpful to get an idea of what they're trying to get you to learn and understand. Now, on page 396, protocol observations, these are not necessarily areas that you're going to see, particularly as a question on the exam. It doesn't help to kind of skim through it, of course. But again, I'm just kind of moving through this so you get the idea. Lots of information needed on just the static postural assessment component of the functional assessments. Okay. Observations, of course, front, side, back. And those are bullet points, so you want to pay attention. But then you get to the common postural distortions. This is where you need to spend the majority of your time, because this is where they're going to ask you more questions than anything on the exam. Once again, look what you got, the apply what you know box. And just so y'all understand that even in this video, I'll tell you at the end, right, understand in the comment box. But when you get to areas like this, one of the reasons we do these videos is to help you if you're struggling with any of the information. So for sure, leave a comment if for instance you don't get this whole uh tibial femoral rotation issue or the subtalar positioning. Just write that in there. If you understand it, great. But for sure, when you're going through this, that's why the videos can be helpful. Just go ahead and write a little comment in there and say, could you explain this? And then I may have already done a video on this. So read the apply what you know box on 398. That's going to help you through these postural deviations. And like I say, from a testing perspective, you're going to see more info or more questions from the information in this one area. Again, I always say tables, apply what you know boxes. The figures, yes, it's not a bad idea, depending on how much time you have to study. You do need to know basic kinesiology that you're seeing on page 403. So again, just from the perspective of this one area, it's a good amount of information you need to know. Now, of course, they're going to move from here, from your postural deviations into, and I'm going, and again, postural deviation 5, head position. Sure, the figures are fine. These are helpful in the real world. You're not going to be tested on this, but then they're going to move into the two next elements here. And one is the static balance and the dynamic balance. Now think about this. They've given you static postural information, right? The standard or these common deviations. Now they're moving into a balance component. So you've got standing there, I'm looking at the person, common standard deviations. Now I want to take a kind of a step forward in evaluation, and that's where these two balance components come in. So make sure you understand the difference now. They've shown you just standing there, the person's standing there, and they will show or display common postural deviations. And now what we want to do is we want to move forward by having them do certain things that are going to help us understand more about their potential issues. And the first thing we'll do is our balance tests. First one is a static, and then you're going to move to a dynamic. And so the balance, static balance, the standard one is the unipedal. Lift the foot up, read through it, pretty straightforward. The dynamic balance is what's known as the Y balance test. Honestly, I'm not sure how often you're ever going to do this, but it's their book, it's their test. Just follow their guidelines on this. It's basically testing as a person's moving to see how their balance is. It's actually a fairly simple, easy way to get a good assessment if you're doing that with a client. So you're going to move through that, and then you're going to get to the important, really important test called the McGill's torso. Now it's called the endurance test battery. You're a lot of focus. You should have those two. By the way, those two that I just mentioned, those balance, they're relatively easy to understand. And if you get questions on them, you should know the differences, not necessarily the specifics of how to do them, but they will ask you questions differentiating which type of client would you do this test on, or why would you not do this particular postural or balance test on? Why would you not? And they'll give you a list of these. So the McGill's torso test, I've done a video or a number of videos on that. The goal here from a testing perspective is to, I'm going to move straight through here, is to know the numbers that that ACE wants you to know, and it's going to be the amount of time that they're able to maintain positions. And as you read through it, it's interesting. Again, these are relatively straightforward tests that you can do with folks, but from a testing perspective, they're going to give you these numbers on page 419. These are the things you got to know from a testing perspective. The flexion extension ratio, right side bridge, left side bridge extension ratio. So those are the keys right there. Read through it. Not difficult reading whatsoever. And then on page 419, that's critical. Now the flexibility assessment. So you get the idea. Functional assessments, static postural, where they stand there, and you will note the 5 postural deviations. Most people have multiple postural deviation issues. And then, so they stand there, you look at them, da 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 da, side, back, and then you have them lift one leg. That's the static balance. And then you have them do this Y thing where they move one leg back behind them, yada, yada. And that's the Y balance test. So you just did those. And now you would move into these flexibility assessments. This is where a lot of folks get confused when they get in here, and it's like, oh my goodness, figure 1033, figure 10. Whoa, look at all these. Don't worry about memorizing all of these angles. Okay. Understanding the movement and the testing is what's most critical here. And you can listen to the other or watch the other videos that I've done on the chapter itself. You're trying to know or get a basic understanding of degrees of range of motion with the joints. That's what you're trying to do here through pages 422, 23. Now you get to the Thomas test for hip flexor length. They love asking questions on the Thomas test. Passive straight leg rate. You get the idea. These right here are your basic flexibility assessments. Okay. So you need to know some simple assessments. The Thomas test is sort of the standard because it deals with the lower back and hamstrings, hip flexors. That's really what it's going to tell you. It's actually the hip flexors, but you get the idea. You read through this interpretation of Thomas test, table testing perspective, passive straight leg raise. I've stopped doing those years ago, to be honest with you, simply because I don't want to be in contact and touching clients. And it's really not necessary, to be honest with you, in the real world. However, you do need to know it. So there's your table 1014 with your interpretation of them. That's what you're looking for from a memorization standpoint. Shoulder flexion extension tests. And that takes you to 428 once again. From a testing perspective, memorization, table 1015. So again, you would sequence this from a studying perspective. You're writing these things out, right? Functional assessments, static postural, static balance, dynamic balance. Okay, you get the idea. And then you would move forward into your flexibility assessments. And that takes you to the end of that first part of the 3 parts of chapter 10. Do not let this overwhelm you. Okay, it's like anything else. You need to start the process of studying it, writing it, rewriting it, write your tables down, and stick with this one and rewrite your notes a couple of times. It'll start to stick, and it'll actually start to make sense from a sequencing standpoint. Stand there. Okay, now lift your leg. Now move your leg back on the Y, in the Y balance test. Okay, then you can do the other, like the Thomas. You can then move into the sequencing of these tests into your flexibility test. Now, that brings you the movement assessments, which I'm not going to go over in this video on page 429. But I hope that was helpful, because just from a very general overview perspective, that's how you got to start the studies on these, is start it with sheet of paper, go through it, write it down. Now you can go back and delve into each one particular. And I've done videos on each of these. You can go, of course, look for them. If you want full access, kind of the point here. If you want full access to the entirety of our course on the ACE 16 chapter 6th edition textbook, then please click on the link in the discussion box below. Again, as I said earlier in the video, if you got a question on this, then leave it in the comment box. Absolutely. And let me know, because we can do obviously further videos on a particular topic that you may actually be having with this particular area or any other area. You can head over to our Facebook page. We do have a private study group just for the ACE materials. We'd love to see you head over there. Let us know how we can be of assistance. Have a great